Today, I decided that I would talk to you about encounters with angels. Angels have been around us since the beginning of time. You have the use of them from the moment that you're born. They're around us to protect us, to carry out our etheric will or our high soul will, and that's the will that we have when we are out of body. It governs the process of our being in the physical plane. It's the thing that we use to choose how long our life is going to be and who's going to accompany us and what our astrological portal will be. So, from the dawn of time, all cultures and people from all religions have experienced encounters with angels, and many of them have entertained angels unaware. The study of angels is called angelology. So, what's their purpose? Angels serve as an interface between those layers of our being, the etheric and the physical. They're generally male, although their gender is considered neutral. In terms of their appearance, they generally are male. Some of you are like, I've seen female angels. That's possible, although sometimes it's easy to confuse our spirit guides with angels. I'm not going to say you didn't, because I've just encountered so many things in my experiences that I really don't have a firm limit on what is possible. But the ones that I've seen have all been male, and they can appear with different colors. They are distinct beings. And some people believe that our ancestors or the people that we love turn into angels. That's actually a fallacy because angels themselves are beings. They're actually their own category of beings, and they're categories within that category. And we're going to talk about some of that today. And we're also going to talk about some actual encounters with angels that I've had. So the first memory that I had actually of an angel was my recording angel, but I didn't know that's what it was. I was sound asleep. I was probably, I know I was in my teen years. I don't remember exactly which year. And as I came to consciousness from the dream state, I felt someone staring at me. Their face was really super close to mine. So I opened my eyes, and right almost eyeball to eyeball was this face of a man. I was quite startled, and as he began to recede, I noticed that he was gray, like in gray tones. He wasn't a colorful being. He just was sort of like shades of gray, and he had a little beard. He looked very wise, and for some reason, I recognized him. He was sitting cross-legged, holding this big book, really super thick book, and he was writing with a feathered pen, very intently looking at me. And I felt like literally he was counting the hairs on my head and possibly my thoughts. It was really kind of an intense encounter, but I didn't feel afraid. I just was sort of curious. He continued to recede until he disappeared. He would have probably been around 5 foot, might even have been a little bit under 5 foot, right? Maybe my shoulder level. I'm about 5'9", so he was a tiny man. I felt that his role was very important. And that was my first encounter. And I always sensed that there were angels there. And I don't know how I knew that they were angels, but there were 3 in particular. And they always seemed to stand, I felt like there was a ring of beings around me, and these 3 used to stand off from my left shoulder around to the front, just sort of shoulder to shoulder, very tall beings of light. I didn't really feel like I needed to talk to them, but I, found out later why they were in that particular array. They are made up of divine energy. It's perfect love, perfect light, and perfect sound. And they will often appear to us in a way that's most comfortable for us to perceive them. So they might even look human. They could come to us in a role that we would find trusting, like a police officer or someone that we just believe that they have an authority about them. The thing that we always experience, though, after an encounter with an angel is asking ourselves, was that an angel? And if you're asking that question, likely it was. They can also appear to us through lights and colors and sounds and through emotions and thoughts, and they can enter our dream. They don't want to be worshiped, though. A lot of people think, oh, it's an angel, I need to bow down. Actually, they're here to serve our will, which is pretty awesome to think about, that somehow as an aspect of the great divine being, that these beautiful, amazing, extremely high vibrational entities would spend their time looking over us. That's just pretty humbling. And in a way, our wish is their command, not like to boss them around like a djinn or something, like a genie, but they're there because they are here to facilitate our high soul will. And usually you don't have to ask them anything. They are useful when something is being changed at the etheric level, like if you're trying to shift a karmic bond or you're trying to work with energy healing or affect some of the soul contract that you've written. You can do that, but you have to do it at the etheric level, and angels would be in that process. They basically make sure that everything runs properly along with our guides, and we've talked about our guides in another episode, spirit guides and how to meet them. That's on YouTube if you want to listen to it. I always feel that we should be very respectful of them, and something in them kind of inspires awe anyway, so perhaps it's natural to respect them. There's a biblical reference to their language, and it's tongues and interpretation of tongues, which is channeling. We've talked about that before, tongues being the tongues of, or the languages of men and angels, and the interpretation of that being the language of the listener. And so what is the language of the angels? And I did a little research, and there's a language called Enochian, or like Enoch, Enoch, Enochian language. And there's a particular script associated with it. Some people believe that you can't pronounce it because the words themselves are so limited in the descriptor of the language. There are tones and emotions embedded in the full language of the angels. I do think that it can be interpreted, because I do think that all life, all beings can interface and communicate at the level of the soul. So maybe that's the way to talk to them, but they certainly do understand our thoughts. And in Christian theology, the angelic host is a ninefold celestial system, sort of a hierarchy. It has 3 orders of angels, and each order contains a division of angelic beings. This was described in a 4th century work and is attributed to Pseudo-Dionysius. They describe these ninefold angelic hierarchies as spheres, and the first sphere is the seraphim, cherubim, and thrones, and they serve as the heavenly servants of God and the manifestation of God. So again, bridging that gap between the material and the immaterial worlds. Seraphim are often translated as the burning ones. The seraphim in Hebrew means serpents. So I found that interesting, because we often think of snakes as being a low vibrational being, but their duty is that they are the highest angelic class, and they serve as caretakers of God's throne, and they continually sing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, and the whole earth is full of his glory." And I do believe that they might be winged serpents. Their particular appearance is generally prescribed as 6 wings, which 2 of them cover their feet, 2 of them cover their faces, and the final 2 they use to fly. So there's seraphim, again, the highest. Then they're cherubim, and they are the ones that guard the way to the tree of life in the Garden of Eden and the throne of God. God is however you perceive that. For me, it's not a personification of a being, it's more of a source or a universal mind. But each of you has your own view of that, and our views change sometimes through life as we have different experiences. But the cherubim guard the throne of God according to Christian tradition. They have 4 faces. And these kind of sound like something you'd find in Greek mythology. The faces are, there are 4 of them: a man, an ox, a lion, and an eagle. And their wings are all connected, and their wings are covered with eyes. And that sounds kind of fearsome, doesn't it? The cherubim, we often think of cherubs as being the little babies that fly around with wings and are so cute. I think we'd be kind of startled if we ran across a cherubim. I would be, I know. And the third category in the first sphere is thrones. They're also known as elders, and they're living symbols of God's justice and authority. And their duty is to listen to the will of God and present the prayers of mankind. They often appear as adoring elder men. That is the thrones, and sometimes they're thought of as sitting on a throne, maybe like a council or something. The second sphere of the angelic realm, as described by Pseudo-Dionysius, is dominions, virtues, and powers. And this sphere works as the heavenly governors of the creation, and they subject matter and guide and rule the spirit. So they actually control matter and they guide and rule the spirits. It's a pretty awesome responsibility. And dominions, which is the first category of the second sphere, are also known as lordships or dominations. Their job is to regulate the duties of the lower angels. They're sort of in charge of the other angels, the lower ranks of angels, and they rarely make themselves physically known to people. When they do appear, they've been seen as divinely beautiful humans with a pair of feathered wings, carrying orbs of light that are fastened to the heads of their scepters, like what a king or queen holds to dole out authority, their scepter, or sometimes on the pommels of their swords, and that's the top of their sword, like the handle part that you hold on to. So they have swords and scepters that have orbs of light on them. Those are the dominions. And then the virtues are also in the second sphere. They're also known as strongholds. They're linked to the attributes of might, virtue, and power. And their duties are that they give signs and miracles to the world. Isn't it interesting to think about that there are beings that their job is to bring signs and wonders and miracles through to the world? And I guess maybe that's why healing falls under the category of angelic work too, because that definitely is a miracle when you see someone physically healed instantaneously. It's amazing. So the third category in the second sphere is the powers, and they're also known as authorities, and they're warrior angels that are completely loyal to God, to Source, and they oppose evil spirits, especially those that use the matter in the universe to cause harm. So these evil spirits would be like running rampant if the warrior angels, the powers and authorities, didn't keep up with them. They're like the sheriffs, I guess. They cast and chain evil spirits to detention places. So they're like the police of the spirit world, like the angelics that are the powers. They put all the ones that are not intending light and love into places that they're held for detention. These aren't the souls of people. These are other spirits. They supervise the movement of the heavenly bodies, like planets and the stars, to keep the cosmos in order. Isn't that incredible? Like they keep the planets going and the stars going, They also carry the conscience, and they're the bearers of conscience and the keepers of history. They oversee the distribution of power among men. You've often heard it said that we're all equal, and some of us are good at one thing and others at another. And some of us have strengths in some areas and advantages in some areas, but others of us have them in different places. And we all have vulnerabilities and weaknesses. And so they help keep the balance distributed, also probably in a larger sense too. They look like soldiers in full armor and wear helmets, and they often have defensive weapons like shields and spears and chains. So that's the second sphere, which is dominions, virtues, and powers. And then the third sphere are the principalities, archangels, and angels. And now we're coming into the territory where we sort of think of angels and what they do: the principalities, the archangels, and the angels. And these are angels who function as heavenly guides and protectors and messengers to human beings. It does not make them our inner band guides or our spirit teachers, but they are there also to guide, protect, and bring us messages too. The principalities are the first category in the third sphere, and they're also known as rulers, and it can be translated directly as princedoms. And they're the angels that guide and protect nations and groups of people and institutions. They're kind of the large scale. The principalities are over larger entities, larger collectives, and they preside over the bands of angels and charge them with fulfilling their divine ministry. They kind of keep order of the groups of angels. Some of them are administrative and some of them are assistive, and they carry out the orders given them by the upper sphere of angels to give and bequeath a blessing to the material world. They're the educators and the guardians of the physical realm. And they inspire living things and people. For instance, artists and scientists, they're the ones that create inspiration for expanding our understanding of different disciplines. And they wear a crown and carry a scepter. Those are the principalities or rulers. And then the archangels, and everyone's like, yay, I know archangels. They're the chief angels, and it means actually messenger or envoy, and there are 7 of them, but which 7 of them has really been debated through the ages. They're concerned with the issues and events that surround nations and countries, the politics, military matters, commerce, and trade. The earliest reference to the 7 archangels as a group appeared to be in the book of Enoch, Enoch, that I mentioned before, which is not part of the Jewish canon, but is prevalent in Judaic tradition, where they're named relative to the days of the week. And so Sunday is Gabriel, Monday, Michael, Tuesday, Raphael, Wednesday, Uriel, Thursday, Raguel, Friday, Ramiel, and Saturday, Sariel. And you might say, well, I didn't hear of some of those. And it's just been changed up a lot. It seems like the first 4 are kind of not disputed: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. They're all sort of in every tradition, but the different other names really change back and forth. And I won't fatigue you with the list, but I have probably, 30 other names for the other angels, the other 3 angels that just are seen differently. There definitely has been a later correlation between the angels and the days of the week, and it's changed. Sunday is Michael, Monday Gabriel, Tuesday Raphael, Wednesday Uriel, Thursday Selaphiel, Friday Raguel or Jedgudiel, and please forgive my horrible pronunciation if I'm making a mess of it, is Friday, and then Saturday is Barakiel. And different occult systems have the archangels associated with the 7 luminaries or planets. Of course, we know that there are more planets now, but these were the ones that were visible. There's been a huge debate over which angel matches which planet, so good luck in finding out the real thing without some introspective meditation and assignment in a way that feels good to you when you do that. So we've got the principalities, the archangels, and the third category in the third sphere are angels. Just plain old, that's the word, angels. And they're considered the lowest order, but they're also the most recognized because they work so intimately with the material world and with us here. They're really concerned with the affairs of living things and people. And there are a lot of types and functions that they have. The angels are sent as messengers to humanity, and our guardian angels come from this class. So it kind of makes sense. It doesn't mean that they're less important. Everybody has their role, but the ones that are closest to Earth are the ones that work with the Earth, and that makes sense. There are other religious interpretations of angels and beliefs about angels. The Zoroastrians, that's a Persian religion that was about 550 BC to about 650 AC. They were an ancient religion and one of the most powerful religions that was active at the time of Jesus and his appearance on earth. It's one of the oldest monotheistic religions. That means one God religions. And you can still find it practiced today, especially in Iran and India. Zoroastrianism recognizes the various classes of spiritual beings besides the supreme being, which is called Ahura Mazda. They have the Amisha Spentas, the Yazatas, and the Fravishas. They break them up in similar categories. They have beneficent immortals. They mean the good mind or the highest Asha. And the highest Asha is the element of fire. And then desirable dominion, which presides over metals. Holy devotion, which presides over the earth. Perfect health, which presides over water. And immortality, which presides over the earth in its entirety. They believe that each person is accompanied by a guardian angel and that they help guide us through life, that they originally patrolled the boundaries of heaven, but volunteer to come to earth to stand by people to the end of our days. There's also that higher level, the guardian angels, which are the holy guardian angels. They differentiate those. They advise that you call on them when you find yourself in danger, and that without their help, animals and people wouldn't continue to exist because the negative energies, which they call the wicked Druge, would have destroyed them all. All of us would be gone if they didn't help control the balance of things. There are also angels in Buddhism as well. Their equivalent of angels is the devas, or celestial beings, and some schools refer to devas, and they're sometimes considered to be sort of the emanations of enlightened beings, sort of like a higher self of an enlightened being. And different schools of Buddhism have really different important devas.
Now back to our show, from a medium's perspective, with host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Welcome back. If you missed the first half of the show or you'd like to listen to any of our other episodes, you can find them here on YouTube. Please subscribe while you're here. If you're interested in learning how to develop your abilities, I do offer private psychic mediumship tutoring, and of course I do readings as well. I am going to be debuting a certification program, a professional psychic mediumship certification program will begin in February 2017. If you're interested in that, please contact me. My website, mediumtracylockwood.com. and I look forward to hearing from you. So right before the break, we were talking about the different angelic realms and categories, and we were talking a little bit about Buddhist viewpoint of angels, and I wanted to go a little further with that before we get to the angels in Hinduism. The Buddhists call them devas and believe them to be spiritual beings just by the way that they are. Their form is usually described as bodies or emanations of light or energy, sort of like rays or bodies of light. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Although they're depicted in physical form, there are a lot of them seen in Tibetan Buddhist iconography. Devas are not normally considered to interfere with human affairs from a Buddhist perspective, but they have been known to celebrate, rejoice, applaud, and rain down flowers on good deeds performed by the world. In Thailand, it's believed that the devas approve of people meditating and will harass people whose behavior they don't approve of. So be sure you do your meditation. Don't want to be harassed by angels, right? The Bodhisattva of compassion is known as Kuan Yin in the Chinese tradition, also Tibetan tradition. She is kind of viewed as a Buddhist angel. Traditionally, the Bodhisattva is male in the original Buddhist texts, but often people show it as a female figure, like you think of Kuan Yin being female, but in the original text, it was a male. They perceive the suffering of all sentient beings. Some sects recite the name Kuan Yin and believes that it summons her aid. So, or his aid, depending on how traditional you would like to be. There are also angels that are talked about in the Hindu tradition, and although they're not referred to as angels per se, they do have different types of spirit beings who act in a similar capacity. One example is the minor gods or devas, which are translated literally shining ones, and they inhabit the higher astral plane. Gods, devas, and planets like Saturn, gurus, teachers, and ancestors can all play a protective role for humans. And I like that because they differentiate between, ancestors and gods and shining ones. And, I like the differentiation there as a medium. That's being very precise. They also have darker spirits and demons, and so do all the other traditions, but I'm not going to focus on them today. We all know the dark side exists. They're the ones that have fallen. They're fallen devas who inhabit the lower astral realm, which sounds typical of our Christian viewpoint too. So devas, I wanted to talk about the Hindu connection to the spiritual beings and chakras because I found it really interesting. Of course, we've talked about chakras, and there's an episode related to that. That's that idea that we have sort of a esoteric anatomy, like not just our physical body, but our non-physical body. I found it so interesting. And I hope that you're familiar with chakras. If not, go listen to that video and come back and listen to this one. But the root chakra is supposed to serve as communication with the angels. And I found that really interesting because, we're always impressed with high vibrational beings and thinking our crown chakra. And isn't it interesting that traditionally it's looked at as our root chakra that connects with the angels? Our sacral chakra is for communicating with principalities. Then our solar plexus chakra communicates with the archangels. And our heart chakra communicates with the powers. The throat chakra is dominions. The brow or third eye chakra is for the cherubim and thrones. And the crown chakra, the top of the head, is for the seraphim, our connection with the Creator. So I thought you'd find that interesting. I certainly did. We're going to move on to angels in Islam. The belief of angels is one of the 6 pillars of the Islamic faith. Without one of these pillars, you're not considered to be completely balanced in your faith. And just so you know, since we're talking about angels, I'll give you the other ones. The first is a belief in God, and the Arabic word for that is Allah, and belief in the angels and the books of God, like the Quran, and in a Christian way, that would be, I guess the Bible and, the holy books, his messengers. And isn't that an interesting thing? Because prophets or people that speak of, things that are to come, and of course our guides might even fall under messengers, and the last day, that there will be an end to this physical world at some point, predestination, that both good and bad does come from God. And angels are a part of the world of the unseen, which we can't understand. And there are a lot of reports of angels, and they're considered to be created from light. I did another episode on jinn, angels, and man, because each of them have their own component. The jinn are created from fire, the angels are created from light, and mankind is created from the earth. And so the angels are reported to have wings. Their wings are significant because they use them to praise God. And the angels are messengers, and they use their wings, and they have either 2, 3, or 4 pairs of wings. And I found that very similar to what we're more familiar with for the large part of our culture here in the U.S. They have different sizes and statuses. They're not all one size, and that there are differences between them, just like there are differences in human virtue. They don't eat or drink. And I thought, well, yeah, I have never seen an angel eat or drink. That's interesting. They are just used in communication with people. They remove fear, bring glad tidings. There are lots of them, and that only God knows the number of them. They have different names, and the 4 angels that are the most known are Jibril, which is Gabriel, the angel of revelation, Michael, which is Michael, the angel of nature, Israel, which is Azrael, the angel of death, and Israfil, the angel who places the soul in the body and trumpets and sounds the last judgment. So I thought I would share a few encounters with angels, and then I have, if hopefully we can squeeze it in, I have an exercise and an invocation to call in the angels in your life. And so the 3 angels that I mentioned earlier, I was in a car wreck in 2003, and the truck that hit me came exactly from the center of where they always stood. While the EMTs were working on me, everybody from the EMTs to the people in the hospitals, I just kept telling people, you're like an angel, you're like an angel. And they were just smiling and thinking I was out of my head. But now I'm thinking that they were the angels working through those people. And it must have been a pretty critical timing in my life contract, because the impact of that car wreck was 125 miles per hour, and I survived it with no broken bones, no loss of consciousness. I did have a brain injury from it and still deal with the aftermath of that, but it was pretty spectacular. And it wasn't till I went to England, and an angelologist, remember that's the study of angels, George Goulding from Ireland told me that I had a triumvirate of angels flying over my head, 3 angels in a formation over my head. And I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't notice that they had shifted from where I always saw them as a child to my left shoulder to the front. And now they were over my head, so I decided that I would try to ask them. I don't have very many conversations with them because they're doing their thing without needing direction. But I asked them one time about their position and what they were for, and asked their names, and they told me that their names were Novus, and he's the one that flies in front, and Hortu, who flies to my left rear, and Otero, who flies to my right rear there over my head. I don't know, it's just kind of cool to see them and know them. There was an interesting reading that I did for a woman who was about to become a massage therapist and open her energies for working with energy healing. As I was doing her reading, there was this angel that I became aware of, and he told me his name was Amorpheus, and he was tuning her body. He was opening the energy channels, sort of like I don't know, I thought of him like a copy repair guy. Like he wasn't her angel, he had just been brought in to service her energy pathways so that she would be more able to do what she did. And she became quite good at that in the years to follow. His name was Amorpheus. And I had another friend who had eaten some bad chicken and got salmonella poisoning, and she said that three angels dressed in red took her on an elevator. Not sure if that was a near-death experience that she had. I believe she did say that those were female beings, so maybe they were guides or something that I haven't learned about yet. I found it interesting that they were wearing red. So maybe if any of you have had an encounter with angels, you could comment on the YouTube comments below and let me hear your stories or any other stories about angels. I love to hear people's experiences. Angels are used when we cross over as part of the healing team that works on people that have been traumatized. There are a lot of other beings that do. Some of them look like little fluttery birds, and some I call wraiths because they're just sort of these amorphous looking wraith-like creatures that have color to them, usually green or blues, sometimes purples, sometimes pink, that work around someone that has been traumatized by their transition to help soothe their mind and let them recover. And when I see that, I call it in hospital, like the person's in hospital there. I saw Archangel Michael one time. I was doing a reading and looked down, and we were both startled because I didn't expect to see him below me, and he seemed startled. He had a sword and he was fighting the darkness for this client. I think he wasn't used to people seeing him or something. I don't know. I'm sure several people have, but it just was sort of like, whoa, he's down there. And he was like, whoa, you're looking at me. It was interesting to see him. I talked in another episode about Metatron and my experience with Archangel Metatron. You can listen to that episode for the details. One of the most curious encounters I had with an angel was my financial bus driver, for lack of a better word, and he's an angel and he's black and he has a big mustache like that cartoon Mario. So I used to call him George Mario because the first guy that I loved was black. His name was George, so I just called him George Mario until I could hear his name, but his actual name was Mustafa Hazaz. He said it so fast the first time, like Mustafa Zaz. I was like, what? And it took me several times to slow it down to where I could hear, but he's responsible for bringing finances into my life as needed and as contracted. I've had so many others, and we're getting close to time. I want to just remind you that if you feel that you've seen an angel, you have. So I wanted to share this angelic invocation with you. This involves the four main ones that we talked about: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. It's used to gain insight and protection for yourself and for people that you know and for all of humanity. And you can either stand or sit, but if you like, you can face east. And so here is how it goes. I now invoke the mighty and powerful Archangel Michael to stand at my right-hand side. Please grant me the strength, courage, integrity, and protection that I need to fulfill my purpose in this incarnation. Please use your sword to cut away any doubts and negativity. Surround me with your protection so that I may always work on the side of good. Thank you. I now invoke the mighty and powerful Archangel Uriel to stand on my left-hand side. Please release all my tensions, worries, and insecurities. Grant me tranquility and peace of mind. Help me to serve others and to give and receive generously. And I thank you. I now invoke the mighty and powerful Archangel Raphael to stand in front of me. Please fill me with wholeness and good health. Help me to heal the wounds from the past. Please heal and restore every aspect of my being. Thank you. I now invoke the mighty and powerful Archangel Gabriel to stand behind me. Please bring me insight so that I may always walk in the light. Remove all my doubts and fears and purify my body, mind, and spirit. Thank you. And I want to give credit where credit is due. I found this at beliefnet.com/inspiration/angels. And it was an invocation that was put up in 2006. So you should be able to find it at beliefnet.com. There's just so much more to share. And actually, as far as the exercise, it's very brief. If you want to meet your angels, then you can use the techniques that I talked about in Spirit Guides and how to meet them, and just apply it to your angelics, and you'll be able to call them in. Very simply, if you ever need your angels, you can just call on them, and they will answer because they're there for you. I just wish you peace and love, and I think I could have gone on and talked a great deal longer about this. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please do let me know if these shows are beneficial to you. I know some people are using them in their own psychic development circles. Feel free to do that. They are free for you to learn from. And remember that it's never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing.